Yeah.
All right, good evening. I've got 6:30, so I'm gonna call to order meeting number 1855 of the Town of East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. We are here in the John Daly Meeting Room in East Windsor Town Hall, as well as on the Zoom platform. We have a quorum. We have all our regular members plus our alternate present. Are there any added agenda items this
In the business section, I would like to go over a memo on administrative process.
evening? Okay. And I have this memo discussion under the business section. Okay, there was a legal notice. East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing on Tuesday, June 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Details regarding how to attend will be published on the commission's agenda, will be made available on the town's website. PZ 2023-20, applicant Bulge Bridge Street Corporation, 216 and 222 South Main Street is requesting a re-subdivision approval to create a lot for the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and associated improvements. Map 22, block 5, lot 84, zone B2 and A2. A full copy of the application is available on the Planning and Zoning Commission webpage of the town's website. All interested persons may attend this meeting and provide verbal or written comments regarding this application. This appeared in the Journal Enquirer on July 14th, 2023, and again on July 21st, 2023. This is our public participation portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of the last meeting held on July 11th, 2023. Does anybody have any additions, subtractions, corrections, comments? Okay, there are no additions or corrections. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting number 1854 held Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. Meeting minutes as presented.
There's a motion on the table to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 And I abstain. I was not present.
Abstain.
So we have 4 affirmative, 1 abstention. I'm sorry, and Frank is also. So. Okay. Next, receipt of applications. We have no new applications to receive. We have nothing under performance bonds, permits for audit substance. So we're going to move on to the continued public hearing of PZ 2023-17, a text amendment. Proposing text changes to zoning regulations, section 502, permitting accessory use using tables B1, B2, M1, HIZ, and TZ5 zone. The applicant is Carmel Realty LLC, Frank Giordano.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Daniel Glissman, attorney with McDermott Reynolds and Glissman, here on behalf of Carmel Realty and its principal, Frank Giordano, who's joined this evening. Ruth, just if I might, I did bring copies of the last draft that we were working on. I don't know if everyone got it, but I thought I would.
Yeah, I handed it out.
Perfect. So we're back before you this evening as the commissioners may be aware, we're working towards a proposed text amendment to allow self-service storage facilities. And we've been working very closely with staff over the last couple of weeks, and I want to thank Ruth and Mike for making themselves available to us and working through some comments here to our draft language. We believe we've put forth some significant improvements to our proposed draft text amendment from the last version that was before the board, before the commission. Specifically, we have eliminated a number of zones that we had previously proposed as allowing self-service storage facilities by special use permit. So the current proposal before the commission is to only allow these self-service storage facilities in the M1 zone and the B1 zoning district by special permit. And the draft you're looking at before you this evening is the most recent working draft that we have been working on with staff. And it also includes several additional sort of more restrictive components of the proposal. And specifically, probably the most important to note is that we're now proposing that these self-storage facilities must be developed in conjunction or as part of an adaptive reuse of an office building that's currently categorized by the East Windsor assessor as office. So there are, a limited number of existing properties that are currently utilized as office. And as we had discussed at the prior meeting, we believe that, these self-storage facilities are suitable for certain office conversions. And so we're, as we've discussed with staff, we are proposing that they be only allowed as part of a adaptive reuse of a building, an office building specifically, and again, in the B1 zone. If there's any outdoor self-storage facilities being proposed, those similarly need to be done in conjunction with the adaptive reuse of an office building. So we're sort of designing it as one conceptual office rebuild, reuse that would include, if available, outdoor storage space. So the two come together. As we had previously discussed, there are several additional criteria, such as buffer zones between the self-storage facilities of 1,000 feet. And then we also have a mixed use requirement, where the developments themselves will have to be part of a mixed use facility unless the developer brings forth a study that establishes there's not adequate demand for office, at the subject property and sort of in the area. So those are really the broad stroke changes. And Jay also has joined us this evening, and we did a little bit of an analysis of the existing buildings with the help of staff on what buildings are currently located in the B1 zone that are categorized as office that would in theory be eligible for this type of reuse. And we feel it's a limited grouping. None of them really have close access to residential, so we think it's a good fit. And Jay, if you don't mind just talking briefly about giving the commissioners a sense of these various properties.
Yes, sure. For the record, J.R. Russo and Associates here representing the applicant. I don't know, did you get copies of this in your packet? This was something that staff put together through the assessor's office. Okay, and what it is, it's a listing of properties in town where the assessor has them or some of the space listed as professional office space, and they're located in the B1 zone. There's 6 properties in total, one of them being 160 Bridge Street, which is the subject parcel. And what I did was I actually made some copies of the GIS, and I was just going to briefly go through these so you could take a look at them. Some of them were a little surprising to me when I did look at them as to where they were and thinking that they actually had office space, some of them not. And I'm just gonna walk you through them quickly and it won't take very long, so you can get a sense of where this change could occur based on the current regulation, the text amendment that's before you. I guess I need enough copies. So it kind of makes you think when you read the stuff that comes off the GIS or off the assessor's records that maybe you think twice before you take it as gospel, but the first one, and I listed these starting with the subject piece, which is 160 Bridge Street, which is the top one you have there, and it's 4.8 acres. It's in the B1 zone, totally surrounded by B zone. There's no residential here. Route 91 to the east, additional B1 zone owned by the Barkin brothers to the north, to the west, and to the south. So that's the first one on the list. When we go to the second property that came up, and it's 169 Prospect Hill Road, which is actually just up and around the corner from this, heading up Route 5 towards Enfield. And I think most of you are probably pretty familiar with this. If we were heading towards Enfield and we go by the car wash and the entrance into the highway garage, there's a dentist's office that's located on the left-hand side. It's been there for a long time. It may have had some name changes over the years, but that's the property that's listed as 169 Prospect Hill Road. It's a half an acre in size and it's got 2,500 square feet of office according to the assessor's records and located in the B1 zone. It does have residential across the street. I think it's R3, and additional B1 zone on the same side of the road on the west side.
Okay,
Yes,
isn't this within 1,000 feet of an existing storage place?
I didn't check that, but
Burlington is now.
Burlington just clicked it, so I would say it's very close. I don't know for sure. I didn't check.
Isn't that?
The parking lot.
This is where the outdoor stores.
I mean, outdoor storage when you go in the parking lot right
Answer,
there.
it's literally right where that.
It could be, so that would.
That one's out.
this will
Yep.
go out.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
The next one on the list was 2 Elm Street. And when I looked at that and I scratched my head, I said, I didn't even know where Elm Street was in East Point. And until I looked it up, then I realized that it's not a town road. 2 Elm Street comes up as the Red Hill Trailer Park down in Warehouse Point. I'm not sure why it popped up on this list, but the assessor has it listed. It is in the B1 zone. They have it listed as 480 square feet of office. I mean, these are all residential homes and
Maybe
trailers.
it's the office to the
Maybe.
trailer park.
Maybe, I don't know. I clicked on a whole bunch of these trying to find number 2 Elm. I couldn't find it. I clicked on the office and that was a Main Street address, so I'm not sure, but I don't think it's something we need to be concerned about based on its size. The next one on the list, 25 North Road, which is the Connecticut Water Company property. Again, that might be within 1,000 feet. If we measure up the street, I didn't measure that. It's probably close. It's got 6,700 square feet of office and it's 2.5 acres in size. So it's a maybe. It is residentially zoned behind it. It's the R3 zone, although much of that area is wetlands. You may recall, I'm not sure who was here. This goes back many years. The state of Connecticut Department of Children and Families put an RFP out for developers to do a girls' children's home on this particular parcel. And I think we were before you informally with O&G Industries out of Torrington. And the thing never went forward. You guys don't remember. And it was on this piece that's behind the water company, which, as we determined at the time, had so much wetlands on it, it was never going to happen, and they walked away from it. But the water company property could conceivably qualify for this based on the size and the office area that it has.
1,000 feet.
And it may be, I don't know, we'd have to check it. It's probably close. Not sure exactly. The next one, is 38 Bridge Street, which has 700 feet of office space, again, according to the assessor's records. And 38 Bridge is right down in Warehouse Point. It's some kind of a retail store. It used to be years ago. B&M Liquors. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was a package store for a while. Mike Ball and McDermott, I can't remember his first name. You might probably had him in high school, but it was a long time ago. They were partners and there was a liquor store here. It's some kind of a retail store now, I think. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But it's very small, but it is in the B1 zone. And it's a 1/10 of an acre, 700 square feet. The last one on the list is 6 Wapping Road. And if we flip that over and look at this. This is down in Windsorville. And there's been a number of things. Yeah, Hartford Toner, Septicology was there until they moved across the street to the old Sugar and Spice Bakery building. I don't know what's in there now. There was a restaurant in there for a while, if I remember right, like a bakery or
Trying
something.
to do a bakery.
Yeah,
Do a bakery,
yeah, exactly. This is zone B1, as there's an area in the center of Windsorville because it was maybe determined to be a business hub at one point in time. You had a post office there years ago. This is a B1 parcel and there's about 3,000 square feet of office. And probably abuts residential on all sides, to be honest. I know the house behind it on the dam we did many years ago, there's a residential house to the south and across the street. So it probably would be difficult to do anything there. There's not a lot of room.
Yeah.
Anyway, it falls in.
The Corn Crib little restaurant,
Is that there?
60, 70 years ago.
I don't remember.
Not there, but across, just across.
I don't remember that, right? So that's what pops up when you take a look at the assessor's records and look at the B1 to see where there is some office space, and you can see that there isn't really a whole lot here. I guess to be concerned about. We thought these were going to pop up all over town. We didn't look at the M properties, but I don't know if there's any concern with the M properties. There's M zone, obviously, in the industrial park and up and down some areas of Route 5. That's where these things are located now, so I don't think that's a concern, but staff thought it was important to take a look at this. You had some concern about it, I think, at the last meeting, so we did, and here's the information. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you if I can.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So, just generally speaking, our intent here was based on comments from commissioners and staff was to, significantly narrow the scope of this text amendment, which we think we've done. And, certainly we've been working very closely with staff to come up with the proposal that's before you guys this evening. And, as Jay said, we're happy to answer any questions on, the proposal. So thank you all for having us tonight.
Okay, I guess I'll start. Couple of things that come to my mind. Is there any current restrictions on how small the self-storage place can be? Is there any kind of, can somebody have a 2-bay garage and rent it out as self-storage?
So,
If it was in a B zone,
right, so we don't have it defined and we're
Right.
calling it warehousing, so it's only in the M1.
okay,
So in here, I don't know if we still have it in here, the size restriction.
No, we felt that, we did just pull it out just this morning. As a matter of fact, we had in the B1 zone. In a prior draft, we had in the B1 zone, a minimum of 4,000 square feet. And I believe it was 2 acres of property size, but again, the reason I think that we discussed, at least internally, and certainly. We would be okay with keeping something like that in there, but, yeah, that was in the original proposal, and in this most recent draft, we pulled it out, but. What we had thought as the reasoning for it no longer being necessary was because primarily has to be an adaptive reuse of an office building. So I guess if you had a 2-bay
Now,
garage,
looking at what's possible on this list, there's some very small little places that, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to convert it into a 2-bay storage unit, it would still meet all the requirements here. And that's, I don't know if that's the way we want to go with these tiny little places.
we would certainly be fine with a final addition to bring that proposal back in. It was part of the original application. It was just something that in discussions this morning, we had said, is that really still necessary given the office adaptive reuse component? And so certainly we would be more than happy to put it right back in there if that's something that the commissioners were interested in seeing, because again, it would further limit what buildings and properties would be eligible.
Well, that and the other thing that I was concerned about was, again, if you're abutting to a residential, then either some type of a setback or some kind of screening requirement, something that would delineate between the B1 and the residential. So when, you know, if it did fit the criteria and abutted a residential area, that somebody's not staring at that in that backyard.
And that actually already exists in the zoning regulations in terms of business, commercial use abutting a residential zone, or even a residential use could be in a commercial or business zone, it's still required.
So then that would knock out 3 or 4 of these.
I don't know that it would knock them out, but it would certainly make them much more difficult depending on, the buffer requirement. And right now, I think based on the residential use or zone, the minimum buffer requirement, which is again, a special permit and a majority vote by the commission, can only be reduced to 50 feet with a full screen and a fence, so it eats up a fair amount of space. And you've seen that in a number of applications recently, some approved, some not, but the requirement, I think, is 100, and it can be reduced to 50.
You remember that from the Scout Hall for sure.
Definitely from Scout Hall, and there's been a number of others, the Noble gas station we reduced, one of the used car dealerships on Route 5, which recently went in and reduced. And I don't remember, I know there's others and I can't remember them all, but to be honest, the dentist's office up on the corner of Wells may have been another one, I think we reduced, corner of Wells and North Road. May have been another one where it applied, but it certainly limits the ability for somebody to develop a piece where you've got residential zone or residential uses that are abutting.
And because of that, some of the ones that you presented to us.
Are not doable, no, there's no question. We've shown
They had
all
4
of
to
it.
start with, and those 4, I question whether it could be done.
Whether or not they'd be feasible, generally speaking, and just in terms of a business perspective as well, is a totally different story. So it's also not quite the same concern if it's not 100 units of self-storage, but yeah, we would be more than happy to reintroduce the 4,000 square foot minimum and the 2-acre minimum for parcels in the B1 zone.
So commissioners, if you look on the back side of your handout, that's the very last clause that's in blue. That's the clause that we're talking about. Does anybody have any objection of keeping that in the regulation?
I think it's a good idea. I like that.
Okay. That's well, my main 2 concerns. Do you have anything?
Nothing but
Yeah.
Does it require a special permit the way this is going into the regulations?
It does,
Okay.
yes. Anything in the B1 zone requires special use permit. So there'll be any project in the B1 zone will be back before you folks.
And in one of the drafts, there was a good set of, I'll call it architectural requirements.
Correct. There's still,
That's still there.
yep, absolutely.
Could look like the sheet metal buildings with the orange doors.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the second to last bullet point above the struck one that we were just talking about on the last page. In the case of a property not located within an M1 zone and where the building is visible from a public street, the overall building site design shall emulate the appearance of office or residential style buildings and convey an appearance of quality through the use of architectural features, surfaces, materials, and finishes, and no building facade shall be finished exclusively with corrugated or sheet metal siding. So that has been in there. I believe that was actually a staff recommendation at the outset.
Make sure that
Yep.
stayed with the so many versions.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Anything else, Tim?
That's it.
Stacy, you have anything?
I'm gonna.
Dave?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Staff have any other questions or comments?
I just had two quick things.
Yeah.
I would suggest that the first and second bullet, which says adaptive reuse of existing. Where it talks about as categorized by the East Windsor assessor. I would think that it might make sense to just change that to adaptive reuse of an existing office building. That's a term that is already defined in the regs. I think we've demonstrated that the assessor's record may not be great. So the way that, and I can read it just so that we're on the same page, our regs to say that an office building is a building used primarily for conducting the affairs of business, profession, service, industry, or government, or like activities and may include ancillary services for office workers. So I think that's probably what we're talking about, but I don't want to be in a situation where this is all hinging upon whether or not the assessor has categorized something. To me, that I don't think that changes the intent, but I think it probably makes the. I just wouldn't want there to be an error in the assessor's records and have that change whether or not a legitimate building qualifies or in turn doesn't. So if that made any sense, I think we would just change both of those in those bullets there.
Can you, instead of, can you just read what you?
So it's a indoor self-storage facility, self-service storage facility shall only be permitted as part of an adaptive reuse of an existing office building.
Okay,
And that term is already defined.
so strike categorized by the East Windsor sector.
Yes. And then the only, yeah, we would do it now in bullet 2 where it's outdoor self-storage, we would just take the same language. The only other thing that it could be a good thing or a bad thing because there's just a level of subjectivity, but the note 15 allows for the application to forego the mixed use development and go solely to full conversion if they demonstrate adequate demand. There is not adequate demand. Adequate is very subjective.
Yeah.
And it's a special permit, so you decide what adequate it is, but I don't know, adequate is not something that we should clear line.
I agree.
Strike your statement in its entirety, is that your suggestion?
I don't think my suggestion was to remove it.
In order to have the self-storage section below the conditions, we need to in the use table. Have the mixed use be allowed and spoke with our town attorney about that. Just so that the regs balance out, and we're not contradicting one section to another. But the question really is, I think, posed by Mike is from the word accept, where, the idea is that there would be mixed use. You're an adaptive reuse. It gets circular, kind of circular logic.
Currently, the mixed use to have multiple principal uses on a property in the B1 zone is not permitted. They're only permitted in the B3 and HIZ zones. So we did specifically include this concept of mixed use, which is a concept that we talked about at length with staff. We certainly feel that it's important for the developers to have flexibility when proposing these projects. And we wanted to just provide an avenue or a pathway for folks who, it may not be feasible to reserve some space within an existing office building for future tenants or provide for future, a future development that's other than the self-storage facility. And so we certainly feel pretty strongly that having some pathway towards not requiring mixed use was important. And again, it's coming back before the board, so we intentionally gave lots of flexibility in the language. We spoke with a couple of commercial real estate brokers who talked about, their process for creating a market study of this nature. And they were the ones actually who suggested adequate market supply, and certainly, folks that were regularly reviewing the inventory needs in the area and in the region. So we wanted to make sure that there was enough availability for a professional who works in that space to come out here and provide, a full-blown study to you folks to just really describe exactly what the conditions are out there for the property owners that may be looking to convert here.
Sure.
The thoughts I'm having are, I could see a study like that kind of justifying the conversion to self-storage. The mixed use piece, if you're converting an office building that's underutilized for self-storage, the mixed use, to me, you wouldn't be looking to prove not office space, right? Like, you would be looking to say, I could put a walk-in clinic, or I could put a clothing consignment, or I could, like other uses. To me, it feels like the reason you're converting is you can't utilize your office. So, and it just, that's why I get stuck in this circular.
Yeah, I mean, we specifically honed in on office because we're talking about adaptive reuse of office space. So we felt it was a like for like comparison where you're looking at an office building that you can no longer use as office because there's no more demand for the same amount of office space that has historically been needed in the region. And so now, you're sitting on a largely vacant building, and you may be looking at repurposing the entire space, not necessarily adding a retail component to an office, a formerly office building.
I think your point, Dan, is a good one. If mixed use is what we are going for, something like a consignment shop, so that when people are moving out of their self-storage unit, there's a place to donate instead of trash it all. Makes it mixed use. So there doesn't have to be large
Mixed use
scale.
component.
There's no requirement currently. The only regulation that exists is what we're proposing today. So right now you could, as you folks know, you could put
So I mean, when this is all going as a special use permit, so that, I guess that's what we're trying to determine, is do we want to require a mixed use component, or if somebody proposes a mixed use component, we're open
Be a
to it.
good thing, yep.
So, I mean, if somebody proposes a mixed use component, I don't know that we necessarily need any type of a clause saying that it's allowable, because it's all special use permit anyhow. So however, whatever you present, of how you plan to revitalize or reuse this space, we're open to listen to it.
I think the reason we got here is because the zone of the property of interest is in a zone that we wouldn't want to convert everything else to that same principal use. 'Cause-
Right.
And
So that's why when we started looking at what other possibilities would fit this,
Right.
it does get very narrow.
if you keep the B1,
Keep the B1 and then add back in the square footage and acreage requirement. It really narrow it down.
so put the last note or whatever, second to last back in.
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
and then remove.
And it's on no 15. Is there any other purposes that serves that other than
Well,
saying that mixed use is allowed? Or
It's an
The
obligation.
note is in there to have the use chart agree with the self-storage facility detail that we added in the new section. So there would be agreement, so there wouldn't be, it's only allowed in B, is it the HIZ and B3, right?
Correct, yeah,
Um,
multiple principal uses.
So put the note on this use specifically in the use chart to allow for that mixed use.
And just to be clear, the note 15. We put it as a footnote to the table of uses at the suggestion of the town council. That same exact language is in the second to last bullet point in the self-storage facility. Additional requirements section, if you will. So we had that concept in place. You're just seeing it as note 15 because town council suggested it should be a footnote to the actual table of uses in addition to. But conceptually, so if we were going to strike it, we would strike it in both places or leave it in both places.
But is this kind of written in reverse? Is this saying that you have to have mixed use unless you can prove you don't need it?
Correct,
That's how it reads right now.
Correct.
Versus
So,
can have mixed use if you prove that you need it.
so in what you were saying, Mike, I could see wording where you just take the word may out. Where it says self-service storage facilities may be permitted as part of a mixed use. You know. They are.
or get rid of only,
Yeah.
because strike only.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
it says
Strike only.
self-storage facilities may be permitted as part of a mixed
Yeah.
use,
Yes, exactly what I was.
I mean,
which would provide,
it's really, yeah, I guess I mean, you could remove that section. You can remove that whole piece and it just speaks to what the commission wants to do with, as far as the uses. We moved in this direction from where we started a million months ago because we were trying to provide an avenue while also providing an opportunity to re-energize parcels. And you can even get back to the comments from Prague about stagnant uses. And so we're providing a mechanism for the use while also not precluding any development of any other use on the property. So they're getting to step outside the mixed use requirement by providing the market study.
So we're back to that adequate number word that you don't like because it's all subjective again.
And
the question is, do you want to require mixed use? Or do you want to allow mixed use?
but
You can
allowing it's
certainly-
not- yeah, it's not-
You can always allow mixed use,
You
yeah,
could remove the term adequate. You just remove the term adequate and establishing there is not. There is no demand, or there is not demand for office uses.
there's gotta be some qualifier in there, I mean, can't be an absolute, that would be, I'm not
So-
sure any broker. Or real estate professional would be able to.
All right,
Provide
I mean,
that
I can,
criterion.
okay, if we leave the word only in and strike adequate, so saying, okay, you're gonna have to make some type of an effort to show us why mixed use is not viable in this location. That sound reasonable?
Because I think we should allow mixed use.
Yeah, but then this will just put there'll be one additional step for an applicant to say, you know, if they're not proposing a mixed use, they have to
Why?
justify why.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in that case, it could become all used for self-storage.
Correct.
That satisfy what we were looking for?
I'm still kind of stuck on the word office. Like,
Office.
yeah, just the establishing that there's not demand for office. That's a given.
Well,
Yeah,
because this is,
doing it in the first place, right?
because this is all based on
But I'm just.
repurposing office space.
So the inverse of that would be to have them demonstrate there is market potential for the full conversion to the proposed use.
Versus,
Or any other uses. That's where I'm,
Right, I think,
Have in a-
I mean, at least-
it's really,
so instead of the word office, we don't use the word alternate use? Alternate or
Yeah.
conjunctive use?
Other mixed use.
Concurrent use or?
other.
I think when it was suggested, at least for me, the intent was to push for mixed use. And so, but in circumstances where it wasn't gonna work, we didn't want to box someone in. So if there's anything else that can be done there. And we don't have specific criteria, so it's not like the obligation is 50% of the building has to remain. So there's flexibility in that, in how those buildings are used, but right, the whole purpose of the reg is because we already know there's no demand for office. I don't, just from a structural
I
standpoint.
like answering other commercial use instead of calling it office, call it.
Yeah,
Other
because to
commercial
me,
use.
if you wanna have the consignment shop, you know, there. That's a good thing. Better than everything coming into the dumpster.
But I guess the other thing is getting back to the term adequate.
Which
By special permit, right? So it's still up to you to make, no matter what word we put there, unless we can define it, it's still gonna be up to you guys to.
Exactly.
What adequate?
I don't know what.
Leave it.
You can change it to, yeah.
A lot of flexibility in the special use permit.
Okay.
On our part.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? Is there anyone online that would like to speak about this application? So we've suggested a couple of tweaks and alterations or additions. Do we need to keep it open in order to make these corrections, or can we close the public hearing and still make the corrections after that? You have all the information. Is there any things that we need to run back past the applicant that are,
So we'll
once we
do,
make these corrections? When are,
do a
what's our
redraft.
timeframe? Are we up against any kind of timeframe for how long this public hearing's been open?
Is it just open that?
It's been, this is the third meeting.
so the public hearing,
17.
7/11.
It was the meeting before the 11th.
All
It was
right,
June 25th, 27th.
Yes, extension, just saying.
7.
I think the staff can do it administratively, just
okay.
I want to make sure that we're fine.
Administratively, and then have it for deliberations at the next meeting.
Okay. But we can
Close it.
we can close it, because I don't think anybody has any other
Good
comments.
with that?
It's fine with us, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
But they can at least fix all the verbiage
Right.
administratively and then give us the final product to review, deliberate and vote on. Okay.
good to go.
So if nobody has anything else that they'd like to add, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on PZ 2023-17. A text amendment to the zoning regulation, section 502. Permitted accessory uses. In the tables B1, B2, M1, HIC, and TZ5.
There's a motion on the table. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, public hearing is closed.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You better have them work on it. Like we do.
No.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have a new public hearing. EZ 2023-20, a re-subdivision, request approval to create a lot for the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and associated improvements. Map 20, block 5, block 84, zone 2 and 82, applicant Baldspring Street Corporation. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Good evening, J.R. Street, J.R. Russo and Associates here representing Falls Creek Corporation. This is an application for a re-subdivision at 216 and 222 South Main Street. And I printed out a piece of the GIS here. And I've got a copy for everybody, which is maybe a little bit easier to see. This is the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant that's down on South Main, right opposite Abbey Road, right at the traffic signal. And it's been there for a number of years now. And the reason for the application is to essentially create a lot, if you will, around the building and the development. If you look at the GIS, as I did when this first came upon our desk, and you were to look at it, you'd say, well, the lot's already there. And we had to do some searching in our office to see, and what we found, or what I remembered after we looked at it, was that you folks did approve the site plan for the construction of the building and the drainage and the sewer and the water and all of the infrastructure that's there. But it was a land lease. The building was built, the owner, John Silva, who runs this Dunkin' Donuts, and I think all the others in East Windsor, and maybe one in Windsor Locks, has been paying a lease. He owns the building and runs the operation, but he never owned the land. So at this point in time, Baldspring Street Corp, Mr. Balls decided that, you know, it was time to cut it out and get rid of it, as he's looking at some of his properties these days, as we all get up in age and try to figure out what we're gonna do as we get a little older. This is one where, you know, he's got a tenant that's been there for a long time, has a great track record, and is very interested in purchasing it, so he's not paying that lease anymore. And we need to find that, okay, well, we need to create a lot around it because it doesn't have one. So this basically does that. There's a fairly sizable parcel here that incorporated initially this building and the Baggett Farm stand. They've all Baggett's been there for decades. I'm not even sure how long, to be honest, as long as I can remember. And this building was built back in 2006 or 7, I forget exactly, but it's been there for quite a while. So in order to do that, it requires a public hearing and a re-subdivision to create the lot. We need to look at all the zoning data. We're in the B2 zone here to make sure that we create a lot that conforms. And essentially when we did this, the land lease line was very similar, if not almost exact, to what this is, because we did look at zoning criteria to make sure it would work. And I think the only thing we tweaked was a side yard requirement to the existing farm stand building over here to make sure that we met that. But it meets all the requirements in terms of lot size, lot frontage, coverage, parking requirements. That hasn't changed actually. All the parking is there and adequate for the site. Impervious coverage and building coverage and so forth. There's a data block that goes through that. I believe you have a memo from staff that talks about it. There was a memo circulating, or maybe it wasn't a memo, an email from WPCA.
Yes.
Just questioning as to what was happening here, and quite honestly, nothing's happening. There's no construction. It's all tied into the sewer. It's got city water, it's got gas, sanitary sewer, and so forth. I don't know if Glenn Norton commented or not.
You did.
He did, okay. I guess I missed that one.
No
His
exceptions.
comment was I had no comment.
No exception.
All right.
So
So
about setbacks, Jay, you good on all that?
we're good on setbacks. As I said, the only line we had to move just a little bit was to be sure that we met the side yard setback to the Baggett Farm stand building. And we made sure we met that. The side yard requirement here is 15, and we're at 15 feet 6 inches here to meet that setback. Everything else is fine. We're, 95, almost 95 feet back from the road to this building. Side yards are 15 feet. There's no issue there. So it meets all your zoning requirements. But, yeah, it does require, an approval for a re-subdivision in order to create the lot so that it could actually be sold. If anybody has any questions, we have to answer.
So this doesn't fall out because of it's abutting an A2 zone, right? That's what Baggett's is in an A2.
Baggett's, is in B2.
Oh, they're still B, okay, they're not even though they're agricultural use.
Yeah, it's all B2.
Where is the A2 zone part? In the rear of it?
I don't know.
The line is here. Oh, no, come on back in. A2
Yeah,
here.
it's all M back there.
The line right here is the B2. It's chocolate.
Doesn't that fall under the between the two zones? Business activity, agricultural activity.
A short piece of A2. The A2 is the terrace, it's starting to slope, maybe. If I had to guess,
And
not
A2
built.
is like, there's flood issues.
it's a combination of a number of things, wetlands, terrace escarpment slope, 100-year flood zone.
Yeah.
Basically, none of the land going westerly towards the river there is buildable.
You're talking-
I just want to make sure that we've got enough buffer zone in between,
Oh.
between
Yeah.
business activity and.
I think it's a natural buffer because of the way it drops off the cliff,
It's a very steep slope dropping off
Right.
to the rear.
it's just.
I've been back there.
No. Just,
Yeah,
I
when
just
you
want to
drive
make sure that we get
Yeah.
in good with all our
Yeah.
requirements for setbacks and buffers and all that.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's wetlands, the wetlands line right here.
So the actual edge of the parking lot to the rear property line is about 95 feet. There's nothing there, that's all slope and vegetation. And the
Where's
actual,
wetlands line start?
It's right-
the wetland line is right here.
So we far enough away, business activity from the wetlands.
Yeah,
It's already there, it was already
it's
approved by the
there
wetland.
and,
Now it's open.
And we actually did submit to the wetland commission and we have
an agent decision.
agent
Grant.
decision because it's a requirement of subdivision.
Okay.
So they have seen it.
Seems to me Jimmy needed some money.
I don't think you need to worry about it.
Frank, you have any questions?
No, I'm fine.
Dave,
No, sir, I'm good with it.
I mean, it's
Tracy?
pretty straightforward.
I'm just wondering why you put a land lease. You put them with a building on a land lease. Not a.
Yeah.
Actually,
That's
the
pretty
decision
cheap.
for me, it's all public record, to be honest, every building he owns. is a thing.
Really? Cracker Barrel building?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh.
They all have this.
So one of the things that I brought up in my memo is the request for waiver to sidewalks.
Yeah.
Right.
Sidewalks there.
With no sidewalks, and so I have it highlighted in the draft motion for consideration, the waiver. For the sidewalk, and then
street lights and.
yep, everything, and then I noticed that, I have under findings, the bullet 4. From an earlier draft, when I was talking about being on the road. Yeah,
Strike number
Yeah.
4.
yeah,
So you're striking the fee.
number 4, yeah,
Yeah,
so there's 2 motions. There's one for the waivers that are requested. And then one for, the application itself, for the re-subdivision.
Anything else on this? Okay, so this is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience like to comment on this application? there anyone online that would like to comment on this application? Does everybody have what they need? Is any other further questions or comments, discussions?
I kind of like to know why we are striking the fee in lieu of sidewalks. Sorry.
Was there one paid when the original subdivision went in, you know? Because this is a re-subdivision, was there a sidewalk fee paid at that point?
I don't know.
That's the only reason I could think of, is if they'd already been covered on the original subdivision. I know it's kind of
So, yeah, I mean,
past practice, we.
I know, and I talk about that in the memo. That's why I had it highlighted. So I just wanted to put it out there that there's no real provision to grant a waiver to 6.3. Because there's so many provisions for, you can put a sidewalk somewhere else, you could, like, there's all these alternatives, or you can do the fee. And typically,
You do.
we would have an estimate for the installation of sidewalks. Then to the town engineer for the determination of the fee. But I thought, just given the administrative nature of the application itself, that you might consider waiving the
What would
fee.
happen if you wanted to build a sidewalk, where would you put it?
Well, no, the fee in lieu.
Well, I mean, if he wanted to put one in, it would just be in front of his property line. That would be it.
It's sidewalk to nowhere.
Yeah.
All the baggage, I guess you could get the baggage.
We should probably keep it uniform and
That's just.
Yeah, the same.
That's my group.
Well,
That was
then
my
work
concern.
back in.
put it back in and then the
It's unfortunately just the, you know,
nature of the beast.
the way we've been running all the other ones.
Well, yeah, I just didn't know.
And we've had people come back and ask for us to come and remove it after the fact.
Yep,
where
that
it
was
didn't make
in
any
my,
sense.
that was in my thought process too. I just thought because it was a paper exercise, you might consider that. So that is why I have the way that sidewalk waiver is highlighted. You can take that out, straighten that, yeah.
Well, my concern is, Mr. Ball says, as one of our last ones that got with the Scout Hall. He said, I can build a sidewalk cheaper than the fee in lieu of.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to put the sidewalk?
But in front of the building,
Building.
Yep.
and that'll be the start.
Or
You could walk the back.
we could ask the town engineer where he might like a chunk of sidewalk. I know we have this connectivity piece going and there are some gap filler locations that are slated to be built.
But is it sidewalk have to go on the property? that's
Property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're building,
No,
it.
it's on
they
the
can't build it
property.
on the town
The
property.
fee, the
But
fee
they-
doesn't happen, but I understand that legally the sidewalk has to go on the property. Because you're waivering the construction of that sidewalk on that property. You're not waivering it.
To
The
another
money, yeah,
location.
the money
The
goes,
money
the fee
goes-
in lieu of goes
Goes to the
to.
town.
Yeah, as I was reading through the subject search, I had read it as alternate locations.
I
Like you have
understand,
Trail or,
I understand where the fee goes,
yeah,
but I don't understand if he doesn't want, if he wants to build a sidewalk, where it goes, and what, how you require where to put it.
He would put it across the front
And on
of the
this,
property.
on this particular property.
You wanted to.
Yes, but in front of the property, right?
well. I think that, here's what the regs say.
Your frontage.
Yeah, so it says, section 6.1 states that every subdivision in East Windsor shall make some provision for sidewalks and or trails. In places deemed proper by the Commission for Public Necessity. Further, section 6.2 through 6.5 offer alternatives to the installation of sidewalks. And in those alternatives, I thought there was something about somewhere else in town,
Designated by the
yeah.
town engineer, but
Well, that's designated
Fine then.
by, yeah, that money goes into the pot and it goes by
Yeah.
to DPW or wherever else is figured out where they put it. What is it? Oh, that's bad.
Offsite installation. Alternatively, the applicant may propose And the commission may agree that some or all of its requirements shall be met by installing sidewalks and or trails elsewhere in East Windsor in locations approved by the commission, provided that the value of the sidewalks and or trail is equal to at least 50% of the estimated cost of installing sidewalks. Or trails in the,
On town property.
yeah.
So I really don't wanna get into that. Because that's gonna be.
No, I'm just
at the bottom.
saying,
The
yeah,
sidewalk.
yeah, but
It's just fun, let them figure it out. DPW.
I guess that was kind of my rationale was, you really can't give a waiver because you get like 4 different things you could.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just keep this way we always.
Anything else?
No, that was my concern.
Then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on PZ 2023-20. The re-subdivision requesting approval to create a lot for the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and associated improvements. Now, 22, block 5, lot 84.
It's a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Dave, any other further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Public hearing is closed. Okay, are we ready to make a decision on this?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start off with our motions for waivers of 6.5 streetlight and 5.6 traffic points.
I'll make a motion to approve waivers for section 6.5 streetlights and 5.6 topographic plan for application PZ 2023-20, the re-subdivision of 2016 and 216 and 222 South Main Street. Finding that the re-subdivision proposes no construction or development and streetlights already exist on South Main Street.
There's a motion on the table to waive the streetlights and the topographical plans. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay. You ready for a motion on the application for subdivision? Re-subdivision?
I'll make a motion to approve application PZ 2023-20 for a re-subdivision at 2016 and at 216 and 222 South Main Street. Owner applicant Balch Bridge Street Corporation for the re-subdivision of 9.62 acres to create a lot for the Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and associated improvements. The approval is granted subject to and in conformance with reference plans as may be modified by the commission and the following additional conditions and modifications. The reference plans are noted in Ruth Ann's revised memo dated 7/20/23 with 5 findings and 3 conditions, all in that same memo.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, just for my curiosity, see if there was ever.
First one.
Okay, so we have no old business. No new business. No other business. No correspondence.
Or your
No,
meeting.
no correspondence.
Okay, so the business meeting, we have two items.
Yes.
Which one would you like to go with first?
Well, business meeting,
The FOI?
yeah, that's. That's what the administrative, sorry.
Is it looking one?
Yep. So, recently,
CJ.
Good night, Jay. Have a great night.
recently I, was up testifying. Freedom of information hearing. Right, in regard to, 27 Reservoir Road application. And, I have a link. Oh, no, I haven't. So. In a nutshell. We, had a complaint that there was failure to notice. We had added that application as an added agenda item at the meeting. It didn't make the agenda. And put it under new business. Without a vote. And acted on it. And then the minutes were late to be posted, so like the whole. The whole shebang was not in keeping with our requirements. So I am making some changes to how we're managing things in the office. We're gonna hold off on posting the agenda until the day before the meeting. That way, when the stragglers come in, we're not saying, well, it'll be on the agenda.
So even for things like receipt of application.
So receipt of applications, I will report that we got them, if they haven't made it in by noon on Monday, they won't, yeah.
Okay.
So, and I can report them as like, we got this in, it'll be on the next agenda, but we're gonna make sure that we get the notice out to the public.
So are we going to actually eliminate the added agenda item
No, because
portion?
we have business we wanted to take care of, or
Okay.
correspondence that
Just
came in,
that's it.
but we won't put applications.
No actions.
Right. And then for, posting the agenda, draft agenda included in the packets for Thursday. And then if there's something different, we'll email it and then have a hard copy. And anything that comes in between Thursday and Monday, we'll email to you and then bring hard copies. Into the meeting.
I should be Joel's pet peeve. Remember, we
It's been coming
getting
last
getting
minute.
stuff last minute,
Yeah.
with no time to review it, look at it.
Yeah, it's tough on us too, and we, want to be accommodating, so now we'll say, okay, if you make it by noon on Monday, get on there for receipt. But no action.
That's
good. Right, and then as far as the schedule of motions and the draft minutes, sometimes we have really complicated meetings and it takes a long time to put the minutes together. And then it's followed by a routine where we're trying to review the minutes before they get posted. So what I'd like is to have, Peg post her minutes when they're completed for her. Of course, if she has gaps in information and wants to call in and, oh, what was that person's name? Do you have a list of who was present, that kind of thing. We'll work together on that, but just to save time and get stuff posted, we have 48 hours to post schedule of motions and then 7 days to post the minutes. And when we have, like the event hall type hearings or long complicated, it's a big undertaking and it's a big ask.
So as chairman, he sees them ahead of time and signs off on it before they go.
I get the motions and I get the minutes to review prior, yes.
And they get sent out for me to review and for Mike to review. And so it can bog it down. And then at this meeting, if there's corrections to be made, there's more eyes on it than mine and Mike's, so. That's what I like to do. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. I want to just type it out.
Yes, we're not gonna strive for perfection on the first shot. That's
Right. Right, and that particular application, we don't, call that.
Right.
Like it, occasionally, we have big complex meetings and minutes are held up. We kind of got into the habit of adding applications.
Trying to be
Yeah.
nice.
Trying
Yeah,
Trying to be
so-
honest.
business friendly.
Right.
Yep,
So
okay.
now just. Even before the meeting, you can't
Yeah.
get more generous, right?
Mm.
So, that's where we're at.
We have no reason for an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second by Stacy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I-
Meeting is adjourned at 7:40.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay.